party tonight! TV party tonight!
Oh, we got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't want to talk about anything else!
We don't want to know
We're dedicated, yes!
to our favorite shows.
Oh, my circuits!
Everybody loves Hypnotoad.
Scary dog!
Pearson at Blurnsville.
Futurama!
Good evening. You are listening to a Radulich and Broadcasting Premier Podcast TV Party Tonight. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight, our favorite show is Star Trek Lower Decks, Season 1, brought to you by the good people at CBS Animation Productions, Secret Hideout, Important Science, Roddenberry Entertainment, and Titmouse. Titmouse. Speaking of titmouses, joining me tonight, my good friend David Wright, captain of all things here, science fiction-y and Star Trek-y. How do you do, sir?
I'm good, thanks, Mark. How about you?
I'm distracted. No, I'm good.
Well, what else is new?
Yeah, well, my life, just juggling a bunch of chainsaws on fire. But I'm here. I'm present with you, David Wright. I am present. So this was your idea. It's funny. I threw out a while back. I threw out a challenge to people. I'm like, hey, I am trying to incorporate more of what other people want to do and less of just what I want to do or what I think we should be doing. So I gave everyone a challenge, like name 5 things you wanted to do. And I think at the time, one of the things I said to you was, I have Paramount Plus now. And so we can do any of the, and I really did expect you to be like, great, when are we doing Discovery? And you're like, no, Lower Decks. And I flipped the table. I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah. You see, Mark, you are my friend and I care about you. And friends don't make friends watch Star Trek Discovery.
I hear what you're saying. I did not realize Lower Decks was as good as it was. I thought Lower Decks was going to be really stupid. So when you suggested it, I was like, oh God, why does he want to talk about this? This is one of those situations where I'm glad you forced me to watch something I wouldn't have given a chance to, because it is much better than it is any right to be. But let me go to you first about that. You watched it way back in the yesteryear, and enough that you wanted me to talk about it. So what did you like about it so much? We're going to break it down individually, but in general, what did you like about it so much, and what made you want to spend an hour talking to me about it?
Well, pretty much ever since Enterprise wrapped up and Nemesis came out in theaters, I've been like a battered spouse with the Star Trek franchise.
No shit.
Remember,
we have Picard season 2 coming up.
Yes. Oh boy. Yeah. But we had the Kelvin movies, which were up and down and all over the place. To hear more of that, please look at our Star Trek Kelvin retrospective, where we go into depth on those. But those films had their good points and some bad points, mostly the writing. But they never really managed to capture that sort of original Star Trek spirit. They're all fun space adventure movies with cool and attractive people doing running and shooting stuff with sort of just the trappings of Star Trek, a very sort of shallow understanding of the franchise. The red shirt dies, set phasers to stun, Klingons, all the basic stuff that just about anyone would kind of know from cursory with Star Trek, but not really getting into deep characters, explorations of humanity, what it is to be a human, social issues, moral problems, that kind of stuff. And then Discovery came out, and that's just one of a terribly, terribly done thing. And it was Picard, and everyone was everyone's just, hooray, Picard's back. This is going to be good. But again, same writing team. And, again, please listen to our Star Trek Picard review to hear more of our thoughts on that. But, they've never managed to really pick up the torch and do Star Trek the way, good Star Trek has been done. They've never managed to really get to the core of what makes Star Trek Star Trek.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how Strange New Worlds turns out.
Yeah, I get this is their third time saying, okay, we've heard the fans. Really, we promise this time it'll be an optimistic vision of the future, and we'll be doing, boldly going where no one has gone before.
Yeah, this time we won't burn the meatloaf. We promise.
Yeah, I I mean, I'm not going to go all over Star Trek Discovery too much this episode, but
Yeah.
the first episode of Discovery, they do like the whole big reveal of, this is a ship of exploration. It's the Discovery, and we're going to go and we're going to see sights in the universe. And oh boy, this is exciting. I mean, really a much more accurate name for the ship would have been the USS Shoot Everything in the Face. Because that show is just like shooting everything.
Sure.
There's very little discovery. There's very little science. Anyway.
Yeah.
So when Lower Decks came out, it's like, okay, it's going to be an animated show from one of the writers of Rick and Morty. It's like, okay, points for something different. But is this just going to be college humor just with Star Trek trappings, or is it going to be something else? And the previews didn't really do it much justice. Again, they focused a lot more on the college humor.
Yeah.
But again, I started to kind of hear whispers from some trusted friends that there's a bit more to this, and so I tracked it down and started watching it. And the first 2 episodes were a bit so-so for me. It was kind of the third episode where I kind of went like, okay, that this could be something.
Yeah, we can just jump right into this. Star Trek Lower Decks is about some lower staff. Let me bring up the cast of characters.
Yeah, Star Trek shows tend to focus majority on the bridge crew, maybe with the exception of the Doctor and the engineering team. But yeah, there have been like a couple of episodes. I think Voyager did one, and Next Generation did one, literally called Lower Decks, where it was sort of from the perspective of low-ranking crew members, and the main cast is just kind of there, like, you've been called to talk to the captain, and and everyone's afraid because it's the captain.
So we have a group of different ensigns. I'm just reading through these. So we have Tawny Newsome, who plays Beckett Mariner. She's the star of this thing, and she won me over. It started off rough, but we'll talk about this over the course of the 10 episodes or whatever, or however many it was. I believe it was 10. She absolutely starts to function as a human being, and is somebody that I want to see succeed and cheer for. We have Jack Quaid, who's Brad Boimler. And he also kind of wins me over time. Like the main cast of characters here kind of start off because they just seem like caricatures of some comedy tropes. But over the course of the season, I think there was another show where I think it was like Fuller House. Pat and I talked about this, where it was like everything feels so hackneyed and forced, and then the next couple of episodes, they slow things down and they focus and they start to feel like real people. And that's when I got invested in the show. We have Noelle Wells, who's Devani Tendi. She's another ensign. Eugene Cordero, another ensign. So you get the point. This show is about a handful of ensigns in different departments of a starship. And you're right, like, as most Star Trek focuses on the bridge crew, and then the joke is always the red shirts who get shot up in every episode. This asks the question: how does the rest of the crew function? To the point where like you get to see them like hanging out in the bunks, like around the hallways and stuff. Like they don't have rooms or anything; they have bunks, things like that. How does the running of the everyday running of the starship actually function? But they take it on in a very humorous way, which is one of the things I really liked about Lower Decks. Like, again, I thought this was going to be too much just making fun of Star Trek, and it was going to be too over the top silly. It gets a little silly at times, but I think in a kind of respectful way, to where there's a tacit recognition that Star Trek in and of itself is silly. So why not just have fun with it? Yeah.
Well, sort of the closest thing I could compare it to there is Galaxy Quest.
Yeah,
where if you're someone who doesn't know Star Trek, you kind of think, oh, like I bet Star Trek fans must really hate this because it makes fun of Star Trek. But the Star Trek fans are like, no, we love it because it knows how to make fun of Star Trek. Like these are jokes written by people who know what they're talking about, who understand the franchise, and that's it adds enjoyment to the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into the first thing I wanted to talk about with this show. Is I want to talk about the Beckett Mariner character. Her mom is the captain of the ship, and there's an immediate animus between the two of them, where you have Beckett, who's kind of she's been there, she's seen it, she knows it all, she's got a lot of wisdom to her, but there's a bit of immaturity and a kind of a slacker attitude. She's just like, I don't want to be promoted. I don't want to buy anything bought sold, or I don't want to do anything bought sold. It's that whole spiel from John Cusack in Say Anything. She's like, I'm good where I am. I want to go out and have adventures. I don't really want a lot of responsibility. And she's paired up with Boimler, who is obviously career focused, but he's a fop and he's nervous and he's all of these things. And they, of course, have kind of a funny comedic chemistry together. But then there's the mom, who's the captain, who's like, at first, I thought she was going to be a real villain in this thing, but she's just, she's somebody who sees the seriousness of what they're endeavoring to do and wishes her daughter would just get her shit together or leave, one of the two. So she doesn't quite do the major league thing where it's like, I am here to sabotage everything because I'm evil. But there is a little bit of, I would prefer if my daughter was blown out of an airlock kind of an attitude. And that takes up a large portion of this first season. There's a really great episode towards the end where her friend who's become a captain comes on board and talk about babysitting and everything. And at first she's cool with it and she's living up to all the expectations and she's great and she's having a good time with this woman. And then the woman's like, maybe we should promote you. And at which point she purposely starts self-sabotaging. Yeah. And she goes out of her way to say, like, don't push me beyond where I'm willing to go. And I don't know if you remember, and I'll shut up so that you can talk about this. Did something happen to her where she was like, I've seen the other side? I know for me, people have asked me, like, why don't I ever try to move up in corporate? I'm like, because I've seen what happens to those people. And I like my ass unchewed.
Yeah. And then there's the whole, everyone rises to their own level of incompetence.
Right.
Yeah. With Mariner, I think that's kind of alluded that there was something that happened in the past that sort of set her on this. Like, she used to be like right on the promotion track doing, having the career that her mother would probably be hoping for her, but then something happened and she just rejected the upper ranks completely. And we sort of learn a bit, I think she sort of views the upper ranks as being kind of full of themselves, burdened down by bureaucracy and protocol. Yeah, she's more like, we're lower decks. We get our hands dirty. We get the job done. We don't need rules to get in our way
of getting the mission done. Well, there's a really great line where I think the mother starts to realize the good that Beckett can do left in the position she's in. It's a Kirk thing. Kirk was always one to bend the rules to get the mission accomplished. He was a very out of the box fourth dimensional thinker.
Yeah, Kirk was always like, the rules exist for a reason, but they can't anticipate every single situation I'm in. So, I will bend them, and if I really, really have to break them, if that's that's the only thing option I have.
Kirk saw the forest for the trees, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I think he also, there was a tacit recognition of Starfleet's inability to sometimes get out of its own way due to its strict adherence to rules and regulations when it suited them. And the mother and I just keep saying the mother.
It's Captain.
Dawn Lewis is Carol Freeman, so Captain Freeman. There's a tacit recognition that you're going to run up against situations where you're going to need somebody who comfortably operates outside of rules and regulations, and that's where. So her daughter is competent. Her daughter, has leadership skills. She has technical skills. She's somebody who can get jobs done. And the mother realizes that she can lean on her when she needs somebody that's comfortable operating outside of the rules. And that's where they landed by the end of the season, but it takes all season to get there.
Yeah, they get to a place of mutual respect in that they're in a crisis situation where the ship's in danger of being destroyed, and both of them are working together to do everything they can to save the ship and protect the crew. It's sort of that understanding that whilst they come at things from opposite ends, with Freeman being very by the book, top down, whereas Mariner's very much doing my own thing from the bottom up. But they both realize that we will both do whatever it takes to accomplish the mission and protect the ship and crew. And it does end with that sort of mutual, at least the beginning of a mutual understanding that both of their positions have merit. And instead of trying to force the other into their way of thinking, maybe they should try more to meet in the middle. But yeah, with Mariner, I found like she was a bit insufferable for the first two episodes, where it was very much her being better at everything than Boimler, and Boimler always messing up. You even get to the end of the second episode where it looks like she's messed up and Boimler was right all along, and then we found out that she set up the whole thing to make Boimler feel better about himself. It was really episode 3 where we sort of find that she basically, due to her adherence to not following the rules and that chip on her shoulder, she ends up putting the away team in danger. And the first thing she says is like, I can fix this. Let me fight in the gladiatorial, combat that they have to do to get out of this. And then the second officer, he says, no, I'm the second officer. It's my duty. And he just rips off his shirt, Captain Kirk style, and steps into the ring. That's sort of where sort of Mariner, we see that she's not perfect. She's not always right. These qualities that give her advantages can also give her disadvantages. And she becomes much more of a rounded character at that point. And for me, also just seeing, like this is just an example of how deep the cuts are in this show.
Yeah.
When the first officer, I forget his name here, Commander Ransom, who's very much a stand-in for Kirk.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just goes up there, and every move he makes in the fight is the infamous double axe handle, where you clasp both hands together and you just whack them with them. If you've watched any amount of Star Trek, especially Deep Space Nine, every fight scene, someone does this move at some point. Yeah,
the double axe handle smash is very popular. The fight choreography in Star Trek wasn't exactly, warrior.
yeah. I mean, it was serviceable. It did the job. But,
sure.
But that is something that you don't get from going to like a one-day seminar with one of their Paramount Star Trek experts.
Yeah.
That is something that you need to have loved and watched this show for a long time to notice and put in there. So that kind of made me realize, okay, the people writing this show, they know their Trek.
Yeah, that was one of the things I wanted to comment on. I said before, it's funny, I didn't realize that one of the writing people on this was, one of the writers on this was someone from Rick and Morty. I really thought it was going to be a lot of, like, again, parodying or sophomoric humor. There's a lot of heart in this show, and you can tell like there's a lot of love for Star Trek. They're just having fun with it. One of the things I wanted to talk about to that end is the language used in the show. Like right at the top, the warning, it says coarse language and violence. Yeah. And I was thinking about something else that I'd seen, and it's on the tip of my tongue, and maybe as I talk about it, I'll remember. But it's the Orville, duh. Yeah. The Orville had kind of a similar dialogue aesthetic to it, to where people, because Star Trek, the Next Generation and the original Trek, not so much Deep Space Nine and some of the other ones, they tended to more talk like people, but definitely Star Trek and Next Generation, it all felt like a stage play. It all felt over dramatized.
Yeah, it was kind of part of Gene Roddenberry's sort of humanity has evolved to a higher intellectual plane where everything is all very high culture. Everyone is very rational and mature for the most part. Whereas the Orville is just kind of a bit more like people in space. Like we'll watch a silly movie, or Bortus will try and sing "My Heart Will Go On" at karaoke one night. Whereas like you get to something like Discovery, and it's like it's just like watching a frat house of liberal arts students that somehow have managed to get on a starship. Yeah,
I don't know if it's that bad, this one, but this one definitely just felt like people talking to people. Like if you didn't know this was Star Trek, you just heard the dialogue. It just sounds like a workplace. It sounds like a workplace comedy.
Yeah, it's a lot more working class. And then one thing I love is just in the little sort of coda before one episode, they have like the talent show in the I would say 10 forward, but that's on the Enterprise D. But the recreational space on the ship, and you have like Boimler get up and he's like got his like violin and he's about to play. Then you just see Mariner, bust in with like a big amp and electric guitar, and she just starts thrashing. And I'm pretty sure 300 years in the future there are still going to be metalheads.
Yeah, exactly. And so I know, not that I want to relive this argument, and he's not here to stand up for himself, but like that was the conversation we were having when we did the retrospective for the Kelvin Trek, and we were talking about J.J. Abrams and his overuse of sabotage. And like, we were talking at the time, like in my defense of him using that without getting bent out of shape that the song even exists, was that it's entirely, look, if I'm still like listening to Led Zeppelin and Elvis, there's like an Elvis movie coming out later. It's 2022. Elvis was big in the 50s and the 60s. You know, we're still like referencing classical music of like the late 1800s, early 1900s. You know what I mean? Like, it's entirely possible that in the future, especially digital media being what it is, we're still going to remember the Beastie Boys. You know, we're still going to remember Sabotage. And someone might have an urge to play it while it's destroying drones or whatever it was doing in that movie. So my point being that, you know, to your point about like, oh, there'll still be like metalheads in the future. Yeah. Like, I don't think certain elements of the culture will just disappear over time. I think there'll still be some of that. And more to the point, the thing I like about Lower Decks is that while it is Trekkie, it still feels like real people with real problems and real conflicts, and it doesn't have the hoity dramatization that original Trek and Next Generation seem to have had, which I think people like. It feels otherworldly, it feels elevated. But sometimes you want to watch something that kind of reminds you of like Community or Parks and Recs or something like that, which Lower Decks very much does. I want to talk about Boimler for just a second. Because again, he also started out really, really rough. He started out as somebody who was just so nervous and everything else. I was like, oh my God, with this guy, you know, this is going to be a nightmare. And I think the height of it was the episode where he has the girlfriend who's like a lieutenant on the other ship. Yeah. And he's having to like go out, you know, it's a great episode because Becky thinks she's an alien of some kind.
Yeah, because like a girl could not possibly be interested in Boimler, especially one as attractive as.
There's no way a hot girl's into you. She has to be a parasite, which I thought was crack.
Yeah, or a shape-shifting vampire. Yeah, something there. There has to be something else going on here.
And then he in turn is feeling threatened because of course, you know, like 6 foot some odd tall African-American ex-lover. The little tropey, by the way. A little tropey.
Yeah.
And then so he's going out of his way to impress her, and I forget how it was. I don't think they break up or anything like that, but it was definitely resolved with the recognition that he needed to just like calm down and accept that she liked him and be comfortable with that and stop going crazy. And then I think he gets knocked out, if I remember at the end of this, but then Beckett and her end up bonding over like making fun of him. Like
I think it's funny. He's actually the one who has the parasite, and the parasite's messing with his pheromones or something, and that's why the girl's into him. So it was kind of a bait and switch there. But Boimler starts off as he's very fresh from the academy, idealistic,
career
oriented. Where you have Mariner, who's very much like, I'm going to tell you how things really work.
Yeah.
You know what they don't teach you in school, and
he always has like a clutching of pearls with everything. It's like, oh, it does. You can't do that, and she's like, please, you totally can.
Yeah.
Like later on in the season, she's like stolen a yacht key, and she's got something else, and you know, and he loosens up a little, and it's like, I'm going to enjoy the party while I can.
Yeah, as the show goes on, he gains more experience. He becomes a bit more competent and confident, and he does start to see some of Mayweather's wisdom.
Yeah. Let's talk about Davana Tendi, who was played by Noelle Wells.
Yeah.
And Orion Ensign in the medical bay, which I didn't understand this. Maybe you can explain it to me. They have her palling around with a cyborg guy who's in engineering. Like, why do they have the medical person palling around with the engineering person? They're doing jobs together. I think that was my confusion. Like, why is essentially this nurse following the engineer around?
Yeah, I can't really explain if there's like a practical reason on ship why they would do it, but I think it's more just like those two characters have their own dynamic. Like they have that sort of, you know, romantic subplot going on between the two. I mean, I can see how in their spare time they might want to spend time together. Maybe they like each other, and you know, you don't really want to spend all your time with the people you work with day to day.
Sure.
So there's that. But yeah, Tendi, I like because she's just got that wide-eyed optimism, and she's just, you know, soaking up everything that's going on and just enjoying every minute of it. Like I think in her first scene, she's medical emergency in sick bay. She has to like take someone's heart out of their stomach and like physically pump it. And then she's just like, this is so cool. Yeah, they do sort of a thing where her being Orion, whereas in the Star Trek tradition of each alien race has like one overriding quality.
Mhm.
Like Klingons are all warriors, Romulans are all, xenophobic, shifty spies. The Orions are apparently the organized crime race.
I didn't even pick that up.
Yeah. So there's a sort of thing where every time like someone makes some sort of reference to that, Tindy's like, that's that's profiling. Like, we're not all like that. There's more to us.
She didn't start off nearly. I mean, she's. I thought she was going to be like a point of view character, but they quickly abandoned that. She's the new person, and it's an excuse to sort of give a tour of the ship and give you a sense of what the show is going to be. But after that, that's done. After that, she's in a B. She's either in an A or B plot, depending on how the show rolls out, and she's usually with. Let me get his character name. Eugene Cordero's Sam Rutherford character, who's the cyborg, and they just have fun play together. They play off each other really, really well. There's something really sad later on. He like loses his memory, and he has no memory of their friendship, and you start to see her like quiver about it, and then she's like, that just means we get to be friends all over again.
Yeah, she's just so overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah. But like, while Boimler and Beckett would get on my nerves periodically, like she never did. Like her and the cyborg character actually kind of reminds me of Cyborg from Teen Titans.
Yeah,
like the sort of like over exuberant bro character.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm just misremembering it or not, or just thinking too much about the cyborg character from Teen Titans, but yeah, I had a hard time splitting them in my mind.
Yeah, well, they are both cyborgs.
Yeah, well, that helps. But I'm trying to think of anything that was memorable about them as just the amnesia thing.
Yeah, they don't have as many arcs as Boimler and Mayweather do. They're kind of more there to service the B plot of each episode, which I think leans a bit more on comedy. Like I think with Rutherford, there's one episode where I think he sort of does wonder about, I'm an engineer, Tendy's in medical, maybe I should transfer to another department.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just sort of him going around the ship and going, you know what, this isn't really working out for me, and everyone's super happy to have him. And I think in the end he applies for security and like has his martial arts programming into his cyborg brain, and he just like dominates all the training scenarios. And the chief of security just goes like, welcome to the club. And he's like, you know what, I this is great and thanks, but I kind of realize that engineering is the only place I'll be happy with. It's like, well, if that's your decision, I have only one thing to say. That's great. Glad you found a place where you want on the ship.
The cat doctor cracked me up too.
Oh, she had the best joke of the whole series, in my opinion. It kind of ties into how was it Rutherford's not Rutherford, Mariner. How Mariner's most logical explanation for Boimler's girlfriend was alien parasite. There's just this one scene where the doctor gets on the bridge of the ship, like, Captain, the crew's been replaced by alien doppelgangers, and then everyone just kind of looking at her, and they all look very similar to the crew but a little bit different.
Right. Yeah.
And she's like, wait, which ship am I on? And there's like, oh, all these ships look the same, and she just storms off. And I just find it hilarious that she just got on an identical class of ship at Space Dock by mistake, and the most likely explanation she first went to was not, I've gotten on the wrong ship. It's like, the ship's been taken over by alien infiltrators. It just it worked. But yeah, she channels a bit of McCoy. Like, she's kind of got that dry sarcasm.
I'm a doctor, not a pussycat. There's always a character in the show that has like great one-liners. This is that character. She kind of reminds me of like somebody like Futurama, like a Farnsworth, or the Lobster character, where everyone else is sort of interacting, and she'll just sort of pass into frame, say something really funny, and pass right out again. She also, like, Beckett had kind of a jazzy delivery with some of her lines, and everybody else sort of plays it straight. they're just talking as people. The cat doctor also just had some really, really funny line readings in the way like she would say things. Like, I don't know, something about her voice, something about the, like nobody really, I didn't hear a lot of cursing on the show, but the cat always cursed. Yeah. The cat always was like, damn this, or what the hell, or like, you brought up like Bones, like if they took the reins off Bones and just let him be him, like that's exactly what it would sound like.
Yeah. The bridge crew, whilst they're not big characters in the show, they still have their own personalities and a bit of their own arcs, and they have a good interplay with the lower decks crew when they get there. And a lot of the show is sort of them running up against each other. Like if you remember the Buffer Time episode, yeah, it sort of plays on a Next Generation thing where Scotty, who's in that episode, he's talking with Geordi, and then Geordi's telling the captain, like, "Oh, I need 12 hours to realign the warp coils or something like that." Yeah, and Scotty goes, "Okay, how long does it really take?" It's like 12 hours. Like, you told the captain the actual time it takes to do the job? Are you crazy?
Right. Oh my god, I laughed really hard at that the whole Scotty thing, because didn't they do that in Star Trek: The Next Generation where he's talking to Geordi, and he's like, never tell him the real time, and Geordi gets like really offended by it.
Yeah, they'll keep expecting you to be that good, and if you do better, then they're impressed that you're ahead of schedule. Like, the idea of Buffer Time, and
my god, Scotty's line like, but how long does it really take, laddie? And Geordi's like, oh, it takes that long. It's so good.
Yeah, but then they just take that where the captain finds out about the crew, buffering their time estimates, and starts giving them really tight deadlines to improve efficiency, and the crew's just going crazy trying to keep up with it all, except for Boimler, who's loving it.
Let me take a time out here and talk to you about Grammarly. Grammarly's AI-powered products help people communicate more effectively. Grammarly helps you write mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly anywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, and spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and checking style improvements. To download Grammarly today, go to getgrammarly.com/W2Mnetwork. Again, that's getgrammarly.com/W2Mnetwork to download Grammarly for free. What were some of your? I mean, that's basically all the crew and anything worth talking about. I want to talk about this, and then I'm going to pitch it over to you for some of just anything else, any episodes especially that stand out to you. But I think it's the season finale that has Riker and Troy on it.
Yes,
I laughed hard at that. Like, I don't think that was actually Jonathan Frakes, was it?
Yes, it was. Jonathan and Marina Sirtis, and they had John Delancey as Q for a bit.
Yes, they did. I laughed at the Q stuff. I'm going to break from what I was going to talk about just since you brought it up. I thought the Q thing was hilarious because they're like, why don't you go bother Picard? And he was like, he's so boring. Everything is, make tea.
Like all he does is talk about wine and quote Shakespeare.
I love that there's a recognition there that Q would get bored of Picard. Because nobody has ever been brave enough to write that. But this group of people were like, if you were Mr. Mitzelplex and you were running up to the guy who A, always beats you, and B, is incorruptible, it's like the Injustice thing where the Joker got tired of dealing with Batman, so he went after Superman because Superman's a moron. So same principle here, that he's messing with them, he's messing with that ship because it was, after a while messing with Picard didn't give him the same thrill. I'm like, that's really insightful and funny.
Yeah, well, I think it's also sort of poking fun at the version of Picard in Star Trek Picard, where he's just not that exciting or interesting of a character anymore, as opposed to what he was in Next Generation.
And it's so funny because what everyone remembers is the Locutus stuff, but boy, was he a character before that and after that.
Yeah, I mean,
but that's all anyone ever remembers is Locutus.
Yeah, and then they Locutus is important in Picard's life. That was a big moment for him, and it had long-reaching effects for him. But there was a lot more to Picard than that, and his relationship with Q as well. Yeah. Whereas Q, I think he liked to torment Picard because Picard is just such a straight man. Mm-hmm. It's funny to put him in these ridiculous situations. But then there was also.
Have you ever seen Damn You Hollywood? I poke Robert's nipples because it's hilarious. It's always funny to poke the straight man.
Yeah, but like where Q and Picard excel is the bit where Q sort of stops being this tormentor as much and starts kind of being almost a guide, like where he's trying to
Yeah.
teach Picard some lessons about
A
life.
mentor.
Yeah, a bit of a mentor. Where like the Q character was originally because they needed a 2-hour pilot episode for Next Generation, and DC Fontana only wrote 1 hour of script, like the actual encounter at Farpoint stuff. So Gene Roddenberry decided like, well, I'll just write like something else. And it's like, well, let's give this immortal race of gods basically saying that humanity is advanced too much and we have to prove how awesome we are to them because this is his humanist vision of the future where we really are that good.
Yeah.
So yeah, like the more Gene Roddenberry side of Q was very much him being this tormentor trying to test humanity and humanity always passing the test because we've just become that awesome, which is really boring.
Yeah.
Whereas some of the other writers took over when they started writing the character, they did a lot more sort of Q's sort of recognizing that humanity could become like the Q in the end, but they needed a bit of guidance. So you sort of see, as more of a guiding hand. I mean, still with like a wink and a smile and a bit of a ribbing, but yeah, someone who's definitely trying to expand like what Picard's understanding of life beyond what it initially was, and you especially see that in the episodes Tapestry and All Good Things. But we'll probably end up talking a bit more about Q when we do Picard, so I don't want to get too far into that.
Yep. But back to Jonathan Frakes.
Yes,
you could tell again. I think you can always appreciate a series when there's that fourth dimensional feeling that everyone who worked on this was really having fun with it.
Yeah, well,
it wasn't just a gig.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to briefly sideline you here. Like when he shows up on the USS Titan, that is actually a official design of the USS Titan. There was like a competition and someone designed. I think it was shown in like a science center display where it was like a Star Trek theme where they had various actors playing the part. We talked about astronomy and stuff like that. So when that showed up, and it's like, wow, like there's actually like this is what was supposed to happen after Nemesis. This was where these characters were supposed to be and what they were doing. This isn't sort of crazy suns going supernova to various degrees and Romulan crap and killer robots and all the junk that the core crack team of writers have put in. This is more like this is Star Trek for people who like Star Trek and have followed Star Trek.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that episode. I like the fact that they were like allusions to Riker and Beckett, being pals, and like there was a whole thing about her having shit tons of contraband on the ship, which she it was she has it so they can use it later as weapons because the ship's under attack or whatever it was. But there was like, who do you think got me all my contraband? Just that Riker was never like portrayed as necessarily like this giant rule breaker or anything like that, but there was always a bit of a danger to him. And I like the fact that this writing team was like, let's really have some fun with that. Let's make him seem like a total badass. And then Troy was Troy. It was fun that she was there.
Yeah, she was kind of like the person like putting up with his childish antics.
Yeah. All right. So what are some of the things in various episodes that stand out to you?
Certainly a lot of the deep cuts that they would make. Like they did that flash forward after Boimler is apparently going to be known for making buffer time official, which is the exact opposite thing that he would want to be remembered for.
Yeah.
They flash forward to the future about one of the great heroes of Starfleet history, and then on to the greatest hero, Miles Edward O'Brien, and it's Chief O'Brien just stood at the like this isn't Deep Space Nine, like Chief Engineer O'Brien. This is like transporter technician Miles O'Brien, where he's just standing at a console all the time. And I think they had like something of that, and him like with the Great Bird of the Galaxy, which was actually like Gene Roddenberry's nickname after he sort of became famous. So like deep cuts like that. You had like when Riker shows up, he goes to the bridge. Sorry, I'm late. I was in the holodeck doing a simulation of the original Enterprise, which is poking fun at the series finale for Enterprise, where it was all like a holodeck program that Riker and Troy were in. Like people complained that it was more of a Next Generation episode than an Enterprise episode. And even him going like, boy, it sure took them a long time getting from there to here. Taking a stab at what was it called? My Faith of the Heart, like the Rod Stewart song that they used for Enterprise. So there are a lot of deep cuts that they do showing their knowledge of Star Trek. I mean, I'm not going to go through them all. I can't want to do the whole. I'm going to explain every joke in the show, but.
Okay, so one of my favorite episodes. I have two favorite episodes. The ones that, as we're talking, stand out to me.
Yeah.
One is where Rutherford creates the holodeck program with Badgie, which made me laugh hard because they're clearly playing around with the Microsoft Office.
Yes,
thing.
it's homicidal Clippy.
Yeah, and of course, because they need drama, we need action. The thing becomes self-aware and of course wants to kill them. And boy, did they play that up for laughs.
Yeah,
like there's a creepy element to it, but it's also like I'm gonna rip out your eyeballs and shove them up your ass, like whatever wacky over the top thing he could say, and saying it in a really funny horror voice, So I did enjoy that. The other one is I can't remember the character's name, but it's the one where they go to they're changing out discs in the warp core things for the shield generator.
Yeah.
And they go and they're like, hey, go have fun. They're with the one guy that's a friend of Boimler's, and like, hey, you guys go have fun. I'm gonna finish this. And he like falls asleep on the job and he messes it up. And the whole time he's like, if you get me in trouble, I'm taking everybody down with me. And despite the fact that they cover for him and they try to fix things, he gets himself fired anyway for being a dumbass. Yeah. I laughed pretty hard at that. I enjoyed that episode.
Yeah. It's but you can really tell that the crack team of writers and producers don't care at all about this show. They just want it on, and that's the show's greatest strength. It's a good team of solid, meat and potatoes writers actually doing a show without any real oversight, that they can just, go and do whatever. And like, I love how the show looks like Star Trek. Like the uniforms look, I mean, they're very TNG inspired. But like it has that look where it's like we're not just redoing everything in Star Trek. This isn't old Star Trek. This is our new, better, modern Star Trek. Not for you old nerds. No, it's like this is what we want Star Trek to be next after that Nemesis.
I don't mean to sound like the creepy guy that's lusting after a cartoon character, but I like how in half the episodes Beckett's got her her top uniform undone. Yeah, and she's just walking around with her bra showing.
Yeah, or her undershirt, and she's got her sleeves rolled up. Yeah, like it's kind of like showing her rebellious streak, whereas I'm not even going to wear my uniform to regulations. I'm here to work.
But I like that because, again, like as somebody who wears a uniform, your uniform becomes askew, or you shift it around, or people there's variations on it. I like the fact that even as a cartoon, this felt like a very lived-in Star Trek, because Star Trek can feel a little distant. Sterile. Yeah. This feels very lived in. And that's like Deep Space Nine felt lived in too. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, Deep Space Nine is its own podcast series, but yeah, it was certainly. And I think like the writing team on Deep Space Nine paid more attention to that. Is they did want it to be a bit more of a, not so much gritty, but like an actual lived-in world that felt like it was real. Many of those, like Ronald Moore, one of the big masterminds behind Deep Space Nine. He went on to do the 2003 Battlestar Galactica series, which was very, very grounded. In that way, but I love how all the ship looks like very much in continuity with the existing designs. I think the design of the Cerritos, I don't like it, but I also love it, just because it's sort of like that very sort of kit bash look, where like when they were just trying to make other ships for Star Trek, other than copy pasting one model, Picard. They would just like take bits and pieces of existing models and just slam them together any which way. Did it not remind you of the Star Trek 2 of the not the Botany Bay, whatever ship Khan steals? Yeah, the Reliant. The Reliant, where it's a bit. Okay, I thought it looked like that. Which I was like, cool, because I actually kind of like the design of that ship. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The Miranda class is what it's called. Yeah. Very, very nice design. But yeah, like they stick the main deflector between the warp nacelles and the Cerritos, which is like the dumbest place for it. But again, it makes sense. Like it really tells you like this is one of those ships in the background, like over here, just tiny over in the shot where the Enterprise is like big front and center. Like even the first episode title, Second Contact, it's we're the ship that goes in after all the first contact stuff, and now we actually have to like distribute the medical supplies, fill out the paperwork, I do all the gritty jobs that nobody wants to do on the big fancy ships. I think that's the strength of the show, is that it really does it does ask. I said this at the top. It asks the question, well, how does the rest of this world function once you get past the bridge crew? And they're having a lot of fun with it. Like, has anyone ever thought about what happens once we've made first contact? What's the next thing that has to happen? And it's again, I keep using this phrase, but it's a tacit recognition that in an institution as big as Starfleet, there's going to be a lot of red tape and bureaucracy and steps and processes. Like, if you've ever worked at a corporation, they have their processes and procedures, and it's just manuals upon manuals, and it's essentially a guidebook on how to do your job. Which having had to write those, like, I don't know how much writing and how much managerial stuff you do for your job, Dave, but I have been in a management position. That's why I'm not there now. And I've had to write policies and procedures. It's mind numbing, because you have to take basically what you do naturally as your job that just feels like common sense to you with a little bit of procedural, and you have to like write bullet points on how we get to step A to step B. Ugh.
Yeah.
But
yeah, like, I love that they actually do meet up with one of the bigger ships, like the USS Vancouver, which serves poutine and sushi in their mess hall, which is just perfect for the name. And yeah, I get you eventually find out that the chief engineer is trying to get transferred aboard the Cerritos because he's tired of being on a main ship, which has to deal with all the most dangerous jobs.
Right.
Yeah, but it's just like, again, lots of little details that they're having a lot of fun with it. They put a lot of thought into the show, and yeah, you can really tell that they know what they're doing and they're enjoying playing around in this world. And whilst like Lower Decks, it doesn't really go to the high peaks of classic Trek. It doesn't really do a lot of the the moral conundrums or the the philosophical stuff, but it does focus a bit more on character, and it succeeds by having these characters feel like actual people that you care about. You want to see them succeed, and they do actually grow and develop over the course of the show. And that's where it really succeeds. And I think it would have done a bit better, I think, if they had actually succeeded in making a proper Star Trek show, which they're still struggling to come up with.
They have one. It's called the Orville.
Yes, but I mean, like, the actual Star Trek. Yeah, I know you're not wrong. Yeah, but I mean, again, well, maybe Strange New Worlds will be it. I'm not optimistic, but we'll
I hope.
Yeah,
we're gonna review it, so we'll see what happens.
I would love nothing more than to watch Picard season 2 or Strange New Worlds, or heck, Discovery season 4 or 5, however many they're going to do before they put it out of everyone's misery, and say, like, this is awesome, this is great, they've done it. But so far, I mean, I'm like 5th times bitten. I'm very shy now.
Anything about the show you don't like?
Who don't like? I mean, again, like, it doesn't really hit the highs of what made Star Trek so enduring. I mean, then part of that's the nature of the show. It is a comedy show. It's mostly, I think, the first 2 episodes where it was a lot more Rick and Morty-esque. Certainly, like, he had, like, I think the end of the first episode, Mariner just launches on this long rant about all the adventures they're going to have and chanting out lower decks. It's like, it was exactly like Rick's monologue from the start of Rick and Morty. But yeah, like, it just, once you hit episode 3 and you see where the show is going, it works great. I mean, maybe, I guess, much like the Orville, if it could maybe get a little more serious and a bit less with the jokes, it would probably, like, there's some good stuff there. But
I don't know. I mean, again, the premise of the show is it's the middle people that keep the ship running. If it gets too hoity, I think it loses its sense of self. This isn't. I don't want another Next Generation. I don't want another Discovery as such. Yeah, I want this. I like what this is. They just need to figure. I mean, I have season 2 yet. Season 2's out. Season 3 will be out later this year.
Yeah, like this is the first time that in probably a decade, that watching Star Trek has made me laugh and smile. Like, the worst part of the show was at the very end of the last episode, because they usually do, like, next episode on Lower Decks, but since it was the last episode, they instead put the trailer for season 3 of Discovery, and I just went like, oh, why did you? I was having such a great time. Why did you have to remind me that still exists?
That's an ill get off me moment.
Yeah, it's like just like eating the most beautiful steak, and then it just, like, you get the aftertaste of just crap.
So funny. I was making a sex illusion, and then you said it's like eating, and I'm like, oh my god, where's Dave going with this? You're like, steak, and I'm like, he meant real steak. Got it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, at least I didn't talk about the wine.
all right.
Which review I just listened to.
Hey, the music in this, they were using classic Trek composition. What did you think of it?
Yeah, like I think the opening theme certainly works good. Again, much like the Orville, it's that sort of very hoity-toity, we're going out exploring in grandeur type thing. And yeah, the background music I found overall was fairly, it's serviceable. Like it
hit all the Trek notes, I think.
Yeah, it did its job. It's one of those soundtracks where it's not real. It stays in the background and does its job.
Yep. Well, speaking of Star Trek music, you can actually use Amazon Music Unlimited, David, to experience all the various kinds of Star Trek soundtracks that are out there and various orchestras that have played. The London Symphony Orchestra plays Star Trek and all of that. You can find it all on Amazon Music Unlimited. And if you want a opportunity to do so for free, we happen to be giving away a free 30-day trial of Amazon Music Unlimited at getamazonmusic.com/W2M network. Again, it's getamazonmusic.com/W2M network for your free 30-day trial of the Amazon Music Unlimited service. And with that, I think we're done. Do we have it? Anything else?
I think the only thing that I also wanted to mention is just the brilliance of using the Packlids as the main villain.
Okay.
Yeah, because the Packlids were on like one episode of Next Generation where they're just this race of absolute idiots.
Okay.
And their whole thing is like they'll just go and like play helpless, and if any sort of good Samaritans come along, they'll try and like steal their technology. Like Geordi goes over to like fix their warp core or something, and they just the warp core's working, they just leave, kidnapping him, and now we have like an expert engineer to fix our ship to make it go. We look for things. And he just like lies to them about making their ship indestructible and leading them into like a battle with the Enterprise, and they totally lose because their ship still sucks, and then it just goes away, and they're just like, he is smart. Yeah, and I think that's all we see at the Packlids. I think there's like a couple of like extras in Deep Space Nine at the bar wearing Packlid makeup. I mean, again, I'm sure it was just stuff that they just had in the makeup room to throw on. But I think it was great when they show that they're actually like now stealing like good pieces of ships and making these Frankenstein ships out of like Romulan parts and Klingon parts and Ferengi parts and like all this other stuff. And they're just like, the Packlids, they're winning, but I thought they were a joke. Actual line from the show. So like, yeah, like they know what they're doing, and they're making good use of what's already there. It's almost sort of like Dave Filoni, but more comedic in Star Trek. But yeah, like the show fills me with joy, and it deserves to be shouted out and to be and to have some popularity.
Yeah, I'm happy for you that this show does bring you joy, and it's funny to hear you talk. You're definitely much more attached to Star Trek than I am, and it's not that I don't like Star Trek. I like Star Trek a lot. I think. But you're clearly a bigger fan than I am.
Yeah, this is one of the foundational.
And Star Trek has hurt you more than it has me.
Yes, yeah. I try not to go full Eternals on this, shall we say? Like we're crying out loud, David. It's just a show. Like, get over it. Go outside.
But yeah, like that's what I say. You're my big science fiction guy of all the people I podcast with. But yeah, being a Star Trek fan has not been easy for the past decade. And so it's nice to have.
And there are those fans that do enjoy New Trek, and to steal from Robert, Godspeed and party on. I'm glad you enjoy it. I wish I could see what you see in it, but I'm not for now.
I have to imagine these are young people who don't necessarily have the lore, and they see, or it's people, and I talk about this all the time. There are a lot of passive audience members out there, and if the lights are bright enough and the colors are vivid enough and there's enough action, they're going to like it just fine.
Yeah,
they're not looking for the deeper meaning here.
Yeah, that's true. Like you can get different things out of franchises. Some people like the depth, other people just like action. Yeah, it's there, and I think there's also a bit of the sort of like like with sports teams, for example, you'll have those diehard fans that will show up for every game and cheer no matter how bad the team does. In Canada, we call them Maple Leafs fans. That's like my one hockey joke. And then you'll have those fans.
Hang on.
Oh, good, it wasn't the Crickets. Yeah, but then you'll have those fans that they'll only really show up if the team's doing well, and they'll cheer them on. But once they start losing, they'll go away. The sort of fair weather fans, and like both have their legitimacy, in my opinion. And I think there's some people are just like, it's Star Trek. I have to support it because it's Star Trek, and I love Star Trek. And if I don't, then they won't make any more Star Trek. And whereas I'm just like, I would rather make no Star Trek than make this.
Leave it. It's kind of how I feel about Lord of the Rings. Please stop doing this. Just leave it alone. It was fine the way it was.
Yeah.
Stop adding to it.
Yeah, it was good. Don't try and fix it. You're just going to make it worse.
Yeah. All right. With that said, that is our review of Star Trek Lower Decks. Earlier today, Alexis and I reviewed Green Eggs and Ham, the second serving. This week, we had our re-airings of Hop, Madagascar, and my son and I did a alternative commentary for Ben-Hur, which was a lot of fun. The 2016 version, by the way. We did re-airs of How to Train Your Dragon and Kung Fu Panda 3 to acknowledge the anniversary of the Deepwater Horizon disaster during the Obama administration. We re-aired our review of the movie Deepwater Horizon. We also did speaking of which, I don't know how if you're gonna get mad about this because I should have asked you, but I needed something for Comer to do. So we reviewed Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, John Carter and Barbarella. That was Monday. We did Fantastic Beasts 3. That was Tuesday. Last night was Ghost Impera. And then this weekend is our alternative commentary for Tyson Fury versus Dillian White. Next week, we kick things off with the Superblog team up for Term Life. No show Monday. We had to reschedule that one, but we're back Tuesday with The Northman, then Lordy, Spooky, Sextravaganza Spectacular. And then Thursday, myself and Pat Mullen will do a TV party for How I Met Your Father. Your father. Hello, mother. Hello, father. And David, who is like the one, like everyone has their one show. David's one show is trivia. He's on like every trivia episode. And you were just on the last one, right? For Wizards and Magic, which will be debuting a week from Saturday.
I was going to, but there was a time zone mix up, so I was not able to make it, but
okay, that's right. Jesse did tell me that. Jesse was like, yeah, like an hour into recording, Dave was like, when are we starting? They're like, an hour ago?
Yeah, it was a busy week.
Sure. All right. As far as what David is doing, you got your schedule in front of you? You want me to read it off?
What am I not doing?
Yeah, really, David.
Okay.
May is David month.
Yeah, for those of you that like me, you're going to have a good month. For those of you that don't, you're not, and I'm sorry. Yeah, so on the 3rd, I'm joining you, and is it Take the Keiki for double feature on?
Yeah, Talk the Keiki.
Talk the Keiki, that was it. Yeah, for Bubble and Belle, both anime movies. At least one of them is good. I haven't seen Bubble yet. Then on the 10th, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. On the 16th, On Trial for the first Downton Abbey movie. That should be interesting. On the 19th, again, more Star Trek, Picard Season 2. So we'll see how that turned out in the end with you and Andrew. I think it's also on there.
Yeah, assuming he's... I think right now I just have you, but with him, it's always touch and go. Yeah,
fair enough. Well, wait until I have kids, then I'll be the one who's in and out.
Sure.
Yeah, and 22nd On Trial for Top Gun, where I will be attending. Yeah, 23rd. Just
23rd.
I will update that. This is gripping stuff, I'm sure, audience. There's someone who's like super into schedules, and this is just like their favorite podcasting work.
I was going to say, you should have seen the Metal Hammer of Doom extra we did last night, where the first 10 minutes of it is me trying to figure out what order we're supposed to do these reviews in, because I got the order wrong initially. But to help you out here...
The Radulich Podcasting Network, where our behind-the-scenes features are part of the main features. Yeah, then 24th, Downton Abbey 2.
Yep.
And the 30th, Trip Trivia Science Fiction, where I'll be defending my title.
Yep. Then June 7th, Top Gun Maverick. We had to push that off a week because I'm glamping the weekend that Maverick comes out. So we're gonna just put that off a week. So that'll be June 7th, and then I have you on for Lightyear, June 21st, and then we'll stop here. Star Trek Lower Deck Season 2, June 30th.
Yep. So hopefully as good as the first, if not better.
Hopefully. All right, folks. Anything else, David?
No, I think that pretty much covers it for as long as anyone would care about. So
okay. Well, folks, thank you for joining us here in our review of Star Trek Lower Deck Season 1. For David Wright, I'm Mark Radulich. Be well, be safe, and behave.